Hi y'all! We've been in a bit of a cold snap and there's nothing better during a cold snap than your favorite comfort foods. Today I'm going to make one of the very first things my grandmother taught me, her buttermilk cornbread. This is a staple for a lot of us in Appalachia. I'm excited to share it with you. I know a lot of people can be intimidated by the big cast iron skillets. They're heavy. Some people find them hard to care for, but that's what Grandma always made hers in. Today, I'm going to show you an alternate method in case you don't have cast iron or if you're a little intimidated by it. I've had really good success with this. It works great. You still get a delicious fluffy cornbread with a nice crust on the outside, but it's not as challenging if you're not experienced with the cast iron skillets. So we're going to start with just a glass high plate. You're going to put about a half a stick of butter, go a little less if you think it looks too buttery, but you're going to go ahead and put that into your hot plate and some pats. If you're not familiar with pats, if you're not Appalachian, that just means a pretty good sized chunk. You're breaking it up so it will melt a little bit easier. You want to have your oven preheated. I have a convection oven, so I'm going to 445. If you have a traditional oven, go ahead and go up to 450. You want it really good and hot. So you're going to go ahead and put that into your oven and let that butter start to melt. While that's melting, make sure you've got all of your ingredients out. I'm starting with a Kentucky Proud white cornmeal, self-rising flour, some vegetable oil, some buttermilk. So you're going to start with just a 1-to-1 ratio with that self-rising flour and the cornmeal. So I've got my measuring cup. I'm going to do 1 cup of each. And this is a little bit less precise recipe than, say, baking a cake or a pie might be. So you can eyeball it a little bit. It doesn't have to be an exact level 1 cup. You just want it to be pretty much 1-to-1 ratio with that. Make sure you have a separate measuring cup for dry versus wet ingredients. So I've got my wet measuring cup here. I'm going to do about a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Use whatever kind you like best. If you're more health conscious and want to use one of the omega ones, that's perfectly fine. Just some kind of good vegetable oil. I'm going to do about a 1/2 cup of buttermilk. You can use regular milk if you don't have buttermilk, but the buttermilk does add a better flavor for it. You may end up needing a little bit more after you start mixing, so just be mindful that that 1/2 cup may not be an exact measurement. You're also going to want 1 egg. Some folks I've seen use 2. I like mine just with 1 egg. Break that egg, put it in there, and then grab your whisk. And just start to mix that together while your butter is melting. So you'll see it starts to form kind of a thick batter. I'm going to add just a little bit more buttermilk there because you don't want it to be like a bread dough. You do want it to be a batter that you'll be able to pour. So just another splash of that buttermilk. Buttermilk is going to be thicker than your traditional milk. So if you're using regular milk, you may not need as much, but the buttermilk is thicker, so it does make the batter just a little bit thicker. This is not one of those recipes that you need your mixer for. This is a good old hand mix recipe. I'm going to add just another little splash of the buttermilk, and I think we'll be ready to put it into the oven. For me, cornbread goes with about anything. I love it in pinto beans. I love it in soup. I like it just to eat by itself with some butter in the middle. And if you're from Appalachia, then you probably know that we also like good cornbread and a glass of milk. Crumble it up the same way you would if you were going to eat it in soup and enjoy it almost like cereal, actually. So now we've got that at a pretty good consistency. It's not super thick. It'll pour out of the pan, so I'm going to see if my butter's melted. I always keep extra trivets nearby or hot pads, so I'm going to pull that pan out of the oven and put it on my hot pad so I don't burn my counter. But see, you want that to be nice and melted but not brown. Trying not to burn myself there. And now that you've got that hot butter out of the oven, just pour the batter into your pie pan. Watch out for splashes and sizzles. You can level that out in your pan a little bit. And you'll see the butter start to come up around that mixture. As the butter is sizzling there, you can see that it's really come up and around. You've got a nice yellow ring of butter around the edges and around the top. So pop that back in the oven. And we'll check back soon and see how it looks. While it's been cooking, I've got my kitchen cleaned up. I also want to show you guys a little bit of a trick. If you have a hard time finding white cornmeal, just the regular cornmeal, not a cornmeal mix, then you might look for this one. This is my favorite go-to if I don't have all of the regular ingredients. It's the Martha White Buttermilk Cornmeal Mix. This has everything in it as far as the dry goods go. The recipe is on the back. You can follow the recipe exactly as it's written and it turns out great. So this is another alternative if you can't find the really good Kentucky Proud White Cornmeal Mix. So your nose will know when it's time to pull your cornbread out and check it. My kitchen smells really good right now, so we're gonna go ahead and pull this out, see if it looks like it's done. It should have a nice butter around the edges of it, starting to get a little brown and crispy. So there we go, just a nice golden brown on top. And we're gonna let that sit out for a few minutes, turn my oven off. And like I said, I always try to keep some hot pads or trivets nearby so that I don't damage my counters or my stovetop. So you're gonna wanna let that cool down a little bit, then it'll be ready to flip out onto a plate. That's where you get that nice golden, crispy crust, is once you flip it out onto a plate.